Good evening. It's just past midnight here. So again, I'm recording very late because it has been once again a very busy day. But of course, I am keeping to my previous promise of contributing a daily update to my video journal documenting my stay in Ukraine in December 2023. So this is day 11, part 7. No, it doesn't mean it's part 7 of day 11. Let me clarify this. This is part 7 of the diary, documenting day 11. Simply because I had skipped some days before, so the numbers don't match. It's part 7, day 11, and it's about the 13th of December. So what happened on the 13th of December was that around 3 a.m. we started receiving love and affection from our Russian brothers from another mother. We started getting the traditional and famous Ruski Mir, the Russian peace, in the form of rockets and missiles. And yes, there is a difference between the two. Just like before, missiles of very high velocity were used, of the type that don't allow the air raid alarm to be sounded before they land. So again, I was woken up by very loud bangs. I was honestly convinced that this time I am hearing the sound of the ordnance reaching its target, not of it being destroyed in the air. Because it was much louder than last time, and it wasn't as fast. It was slower and of much higher intensity. So I thought it wasn't the anti-aircraft guns, but the rockets or missiles having overwhelmed the air defense system and reaching their target. Luckily, I was wrong, and it was the same kind of air defense system that I had witnessed 3 days ago, only this time much closer and of much higher caliber. The windows and walls were shaking simply because of the firing of this gun. I don't know where it is located, and I'm pretty happy to say that I think they move them around all the time and keep them camouflaged as it should be. Now, before I got a chance to wake up and realize what's happening and start filming, my phone also doesn't always want to cooperate with me. It was over. I think it only lasted about a minute and a half. Just like I said in my last entry, the Russians don't usually use prolonged salvos. They just send a few missiles in a tight group, very fast. I told you that it takes them a few minutes. Today I can offer a more precise number. So if we're talking about S-400, the ones that were used this morning, it takes them 1 minute and 30 to 1 minute and 40 seconds from Russia to Kyiv. They are very fast. I did a little research, and they fly with over 2,000 meters per second. That's more than 2 kilometers per second. But thankfully, apparently, not fast enough. And that is very important. But I'll get back to this aspect later. The locals, yeah, I still have a cold, but I'm working on it. The locals are not as put off, I should say, by these sounds as I am. They are grateful for these sounds. They know the difference, and this for them is the sound of freedom, safety, independence, and defiance. There's no place for moral ambiguity here. There's no place for hypocrisy and double standards. There's no place here for saying the one who can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a Twitter account. I want you to think about that. Now, I know the environment in which that particular statement was made. And I can tell you it was a state that has rule of law, not rule of strength. Which is exactly why we need rule of law all over the world. We can't have it in some places of the world. We either have it everywhere or we don't. And this is right at the edge, right? It's here. It's in our side of the world. In Europe. Not in Asia, not in Africa, not in South America, not in some exotic place that you've never heard of. It's in Europe. It's in that side of the world that has to be civilized. It's in that side of the world that carries the torch. But if the light fades out here, then what do we do? Zombies. The Zed heads. The zombies will tell you they fight for a multipolar world. That makes as much sense as me saying I want 3 or 4 competitive, different types of police in my city, all competing amongst each other and fighting amongst each other to ensure that I get treated fairly by the police. You see how ridiculous that sounds? They will also say, I don't want the United States to be. Why should they be the policeman of the world? Because nobody's in a better position than they are. And I'm not just talking about the military, about might. I'm also talking about right. There's no contest when we're talking about might. They are the first army in the world, by far the most powerful. I don't want to say army, and I hate misusing terms. It's very late and I'm a little tired. I want to say military, not army. So they have the means to do it. There are other strong armies out there, of course, but let's think about. I don't even want to get into the historical record that is also clear from the get-go. There's no competition between the type of investment that the United States have made in global peace and interventions to prevent genocide all over the world, and their competitors, which are of course China and Russia. There's just no possible comparison can be made. But I don't even want to talk about the historical record. I want to talk about how liable and susceptible they are to be held accountable by their own civil society, public opinion, and media back home. There's no such possibility with the Russian army, definitely no question of this with the Chinese army. The only one that is liable and always to be fairly judged, put in place, put on the spot by its own people and media, and has always been put on the spot by its own people and media, is obviously the United States military. Now, I, for one, I don't really like the United States, but then again, I don't need to. When it comes to the rule of law and who should enforce it, that's like asking me, do I want to lose a finger or do I want to lose my life? The decision is quite simple. That's like the same, it's what Churchill said about capitalism and communism. Capitalism is imperfect because not everybody is rich and has everything they want. Because it distributes wealth unequally. Communism is incorrigible because it distributes poverty and misery universally to everybody. It's the same here. Now, about the rockets, the type of rocket that was used was S-400, which is, when I first read about it, I thought there might have been a mistake because I know that the S-300 and S-400 systems are air defense systems, not ballistic missiles, but they are used now and have been used before to target cities, to target civilian objectives by the Russians. Thankfully, all of them were shot down. I understand 10 of them were launched in a very fast sequence. All of them were shot down. The alarm was sounded again after the fact, and a few minutes later was turned off, was called off. The debris hit a private house and partially destroyed it. A person was wounded. They also hit a children's hospital, and about 20 children inside were also wounded. And many other people were also wounded by the blasts, the blast wave created by the destruction of the ordnance. Even when they are destroyed in the air, some of them still explode. Thankfully, they explode in the air, not against the target they're supposed to reach. But the blast wave is still strong enough to blow windows inside, to blow windows in, I should say, which turns them into shrapnel, which hurts people. This is why I explained already that everybody uses duct tape. Again, an imperfect solution. Now, this definitely doesn't get covered enough. So for this purpose, I will also link one of the articles that was published by our good, patriotic, and courageous friends at the Romanian battle group Jetica, which, as you know, are Romanian speakers from various backgrounds, all fighting together in one battalion as volunteers here in Ukraine, including Romanian citizens, including Moldavian citizens, and including Ukrainian citizens of Romanian ethnicity. So they published this article, and I'm going to link to it in the description, so you can get a better understanding of what happened last night. I am amazed that people are still amazed that people actually live in Ukraine. Yes, people live in Ukraine because they choose to live in Ukraine. This is the reason why I came to Kyiv on our National Day on the 1st of December to celebrate my national holiday, a patriotic day for any Romanian, in the patriotic capital of the world. Because none are more patriotic than the Ukrainians. Because they choose to live here, fully knowing that every night some of them will die, not only on the front, but in the cities too, bombed by Russians. This is not a chance, this is not a probability, this is a fact. I also got a screenshot from an air raid alarm in Romania from a friend who lives in Tulcea, a fellow English teacher. So that definitely means there are drone attacks performed at the border or directly onto our country's land by the Russians right now. Unfortunately, our authorities still choose to cower from a decisive response to this. They choose to do so because unfortunately, a good part of our population has succumbed to Russian propaganda. They have become zombies. And these peoples are still, even though society as a whole is starting to wake up, there are still those who are still desperately trying to push the idea that no, you should bury your head in the sand. No, you should accept, you should tolerate injustice. No, it's in your best interest to do what is morally wrong. Because we don't care, we shouldn't care, we should avert our eyes, we shouldn't know, we shouldn't care, we shouldn't do any kind of research, we should live in ignorance, sovereignty, just build a wall, like Trump said, around Romania, and bury our heads in it, and pretend like there's nobody around, and we live on planet Romania. And they call it sovereignty. Maybe you've heard of the sovereign citizen syndrome in the United States, where people stop obeying the law and they call themselves sovereign citizens. Sovereign from whom? We're all part of society. Whom exactly are you sovereign from? We all live together. You want something from me, I want something from you, so we trade, we have rules. That's the social contract. You want to claim yourself above the social contract? Fine, you can do that. But you gotta go. You can live by yourself, but not among other people who choose to live as a society. And here I want to touch on the subject of, I don't want to say COVIDiots, but people who claim that they have a right not to wear a mask, not to get vaccinated. They have a right to do whatever they want to. Of course you don't. Of course you don't. Your right to do whatever you want to because you want to will never ever trump the right of others to be safe and healthy. You don't, so society wants to take care of all its members. You don't want to play by the rules of society. Fine. Nobody's forcing you to stay in here. Pack your bags and go to the forest. And you can live by yourself. You want to live by your own rules. You live in your own society. There are many things to say here. But this is already a long video, so I'm not gonna get into the two philosophical references that I could make right off the top of my head here. I want to talk about philosophy goes to the movies. A lovely book that I read a few years ago, but I will do this tomorrow because I don't want to turn this into a video that is too long. So I'll stop at saying this. What the zombies push is ironic because they say they try to. So after many stages of trying to push the idea that Russia is morally right, now they're accepting that, okay, we're committing atrocities, but it's still in our best interest to pretend like we're neutral. And I want to touch on this. When all else failed, when all the moral justifications were exploded, and when everybody finally saw the inhuman nature of the Russian army, their final resort was, okay, fine, it's not morally acceptable in any way, but it's still in your best interest to shut up and let me do what I want in Ukraine, like a bully, yeah? So, I just wanted to gather my thoughts for a second. So then they resorted to the oldest weapon in the Russian book, which is propaganda. And it, unfortunately, shameless lies have always worked well for them in the West, because we have so many useful idiots. Speaking about useful idiots, I know I talked about Noam Chomsky last time. So they resorted to propaganda of the basic divide and conquer style. And where could it work better than Europe, which has historically always been divided? They tap into the traditional international conflicts in Europe. Romania versus Hungary, Turkey versus Greece. They just tap into these and they press really hard on the gas pedal to feed the ultra-nationalistic groups, as ridiculous as their rhetoric might be, as self-contradictory as their rhetoric might be. If you just look at the former KGB agent that leads the party Aur, that recently claimed he's the youngest presidential candidate, and he's also the most Russophobic. Right after meeting with Russian FSB agents, mate? That's so? Well. But I guess he had to say something because the elections are coming, and people need to hear what they want to pretend is real. So, divide and conquer. And now we've got people pushing to get out of NATO, to get out of the European Union, which is absolutely absurd. But this, again, I will also post links to a Romanian channel called Zayafet, which does a far better job than I could ever do explaining exactly the nature of NATO and its benefits, as well as the European Union and its benefits, and the traditional enemy and cancer that Russia has been for Romania, for my country, since at least 200 years ago. So I will also link to that. Now, my example is much more simplistic to put my idea through. There's um, there's a lizard, gecko, I think, and this lizard, when you catch it by the tail, its natural response is to drop its tail. It detaches the tail from the backbone so it can run away. It is an evolutionary step that has allowed it to escape being eaten so many times. So it is naturally a mutation that has propagated within the species. Now, what's funny about it's so you see, it's not glorious, it's not dignified, but it's a sacrifice that you make in order to live. But the funny thing about this lizard is it's not very smart. So when you grab it by the head, it instinctively drops its tail. But now it's still stuck in your hand because you're holding it by the head, but it also lost its tail. And that's exactly the irony in the Putinist mind. So right now they're at the stage where they can no longer hide. They accept that what is happening is abominable, unacceptable, but they claim it's still in our best interest to shut up and play nice with the bully. Well, in fact, it's not. It's not in our best interest at all. It's not in our best interest to leave the European Union, to leave NATO, to let others suffer so that the evil empire might grow and become more powerful and eventually threaten us like it's doing, just as it's doing now, but with much more strength behind it. Of course, it's not in our best interest. So, no, it's morally unacceptable and it's also against every interest that we could possibly have. No, our interest is to dismantle Russia, to not let two stones on top of one another in that God-forsaken country. And that is the only thing that can ever stop the Russian sick mind. Imagine the end of fascist Germany. Would they ever have stopped if they hadn't been completely and comprehensively defeated and humiliated? Of course not. Will the Russians stop if they're not? Of course not. They're worse. So that's what needs to happen then. So let's do our best to stop pretending like we are suffering from war fatigue, because we are not in a war. These people are. So for us, it would be like being trapped by the head and dropping our tails too. Well, I did want to touch more on the philosophical side of how toxic it is to pretend like everything is relative when it comes to morals. But I'll just leave that statement out there and I'll pick it up in the morning with my daily contribution for day 12. Right now, I'll just say that I had to shave my head, and I'm pretty proud of it. I think I did a good job. I know it probably doesn't help with the lighting because of the reflection in this big light bulb, but what can you do? I'm not gonna wear a cap inside just for your sake, so you have to deal with it. I'm sorry it was such a long video, but as Karagialis said, I write a lot because I don't have the time to write a little. When you're tired, things don't really come out correctly the first time. So bear with me. Stay safe, stay warm, and Zapere Mocha.